Hello, and welcome to the From the Shadows podcast. I am the producer, Jason Lewis. I would like to thank you for tuning in to the From the Shadows podcast. And without further ado, here is your host, Shane Grove.
All right, on this episode of From the Shadows podcast, we'd like to introduce a couple of local, and I say local, I mean North Central Ohioans, Tim and Charma. We're going to welcome them to the program. And they are kind of they're example of what we're trying to do here with the podcast by talking about stuff from the shadows, okay, about, your experiences with whether it's a ghost, an alien visiting you, or the dog man chasing you down Temple Road. These are a couple that I have known, at least Tim, for practically all his life, who, out of the blue, because of this program, approached me last week, and they told me some very interesting stories that I thought would be of value to the listeners to maybe help other people come forward and want to share their stories. And so you know that you're not alone out there if something doesn't seem right at the house or wherever you may be. So. And what also is interesting about these stories they were telling me is that the house they took place at, if you are a listener and have listened to all of our episodes, it is extremely close to the road that the dog man chased our esteemed From the Shadows podcast member, the judge, down the road as a young teenager. So keep that in mind as we hear their story, and they tell us that all this stuff is kind of happening, which we're going to get into later after the story, in a little centralized area in North Central Ohio. Without any further ado, Tim, Charma, welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Thank you.
So let me jump in here. This is a unique opportunity for people to tell us, your experiences. And we really want to encourage any listeners out there, if you've had similar experiences or unique experiences on your own, contact us by email, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and maybe you'd like to come on the podcast and share your stories as well. So let's start with, what are you going to talk with us about tonight? Obviously, it's not going to be about a dog man chasing down the road.
No.
Or Jerry tackling Bigfoot.
We lived in a haunted house for 10 years.
When you say haunted, and for those of you who've listened to Dr. Rebecca Foster's podcast, that's sort of an interesting term of art, whether something's haunted or not haunted. And she went into the difference between spirits and specters and ghosts and things like that. So, the word haunted is kind of a generic term. So we're going to try to explore with you today what that really means. So tell us about your house.
Well, we bought the house in 1998. It was on Beach Grove Road in Crawford County. We were really young. It was our first house. We bought it at auction, so it needed a complete overhaul. Part of it was livable, so we lived in the downstairs.
For about 6 years.
Yeah, for about 6 years.
Before we did the upstairs.
Yeah. So we redid it room by room. Tim is a carpenter and a farmer, so we did all the work ourselves. And just started seeing some weird things. Hearing things, seeing things.
When you say weird, what do you mean?
Well, at first, because we were on different shifts. So he was working a swing shift at GE at that time. And so at first, I would be in there evening.
Together when we'd see stuff.
Yeah, we weren't together. And so at first I would hear bumps or just think you see something out of the corner of your eye. And I kind of just brushed it off. It's not something you really believe when you first see it. And then he had an interesting story with the dog. He was sleeping during the day.
Yeah, I was sleeping, and there was a hallway to our bedroom, and the dog sets up in bed and just starts barking. So I turn over and I kind of open my eyes a little bit and look, and a man with flannel shirt and suspenders walked past, like into the bathroom. So I get up and I'm like, what's
So let
going
me
on?
ask you this: when you saw that, the man was, did you actually see color, or was it more gray, darkish?
No,
figure?
it looked like a person just walked by, but I didn't see his face. It just like a solid figure.
So was it your first instinct that a real person was
Right.
somehow in your house?
I get up and I'm like, who's here? So I start looking around, and he kind of walked, kind of like my dad. So I thought, well, Dad stopped and, needed to use the bathroom or something. So I get up and I look, nobody's there. I look out in the driveway and down the road, and there's no traffic. I mean, it's 2:00 or something like that in the middle of the day on a random Tuesday, So
So
quick
prior
question.
to this, Jerry, go ahead.
So prior to moving in your house, did you ever have any kind of paranormal
Yeah,
experience?
We
or-
both did.
So,
yeah, as a kid, I had different things.
as a kid, but nothing until like your teens or adult life.
No, not really. Not
When you
until
were little.
When I was little,
So nothing as clear as when you
Well,
moved in.
My dad and my mom told me one time Dad come home from work where we lived about 10 miles from our place on Beach Grove,
And you're talking about the house
down the road from you.
100 yards down the road from
Yeah.
where I grew up.
Dad come home and Mom had me and my sister, and we were all in the bathroom, and I don't remember it, but they tell me. But apparently I said to Dad's like, what are you guys doing? And I said to Dad, well, the Tupperware lids were flying like frisbees through the house. And I don't remember. I kind of remember something, but I don't remember. I was like 5.
So something like, I think if maybe other shows would describe it as a poltergeist type experience, where
something like that.
objects were being moved by some sort of energy force and didn't know. So your mom rounds up all the kids, puts them in a...
Yeah, because I remember the old lady that lived at the house, Pet, we called her Pet. Although I could see her going into the kitchen because she was a feisty old lady, throwing Tupperware lids all over the kitchen.
Just to scare my mom.
Just to scare, yeah. Okay, so I could see it, and I would have to ask some of my relatives, but Pat probably was born at that house and probably died and probably
her brother died there. They had the wake in the living room.
Okay, so yeah, you're talking like an old farmhouse that was kind of creepy.
So, Charma, you said that you also had some experiences.
The house I grew up in, it wasn't anything like that. There was just footsteps constantly up and down the stairs at nighttime. In fact, they were so heavy I would get up and see. My bedroom was upstairs. My mom's was downstairs. I would get up to see if my mom was doing something downstairs, and she would be asleep. And then I actually saw at All Miller Park one time, I was over there with some friends, and I looked over and I saw a man sitting on a rock for a few seconds, and he wasn't there. But other than that, we would lose things in the house too. And I remember my mom constantly misplacing her keys, but it was odd because, I don't know, she'd say, okay, give me my keys back, that sort of thing, and walk away. A little bit later, she would find her keys. So.
And we talked before we came on about similar experiences in a house I grew up on, which we'll touch on later. So both of you had some sort of frame of reference that, there is maybe things that go bump in the night that aren't necessarily explainable through normal, sciences. Our resident skeptic, the Howler, would say, well, there's an explanation for everything.
So how do you? So a guy walks down or figure walks down the hallway. Did you hear anything, or was it like you heard footsteps, or it was just because
The dog set up started.
And did you call out and say, "Hey"? Did you ever say,
Yeah.
"Hey"?
I said, "Who's out there?"
And there's no answer.
No, nothing.
Now, how long did the dog carry on?
Not real long, because as soon as I would get up, I would say, it's all right, Gladys, go back to sleep or whatever.
The dog was named Gladys.
After Elvis's mother. But that's a whole nother podcast.
I assume.
I guess so.
I assume you didn't call the sheriff and say, "Hey, I think there's an intruder in my
Gladys
house."
is going
I
nuts.
looked around, there was nothing missing, or I was like, what the heck,
So was that the first time either one of you actually had seen some sort of?
In that house, that's the first time I had seen anything, and I didn't say anything to her because I didn't want her to think I was crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So once again, we talk about people who have life experiences and they don't tell anybody. And sometimes when you're watching TV, you're like, well, why wouldn't you tell somebody? That's the first thing.
You don't even want to tell
you want to tell
were you
your
guys
spouse.
married at the time?
no, we weren't.
Yeah, you don't even want to tell your person that you're going to marry. Well, I saw this because maybe you might think so. Then I'm assuming you guys hadn't told each other
No.
about the stuff that happened to.
No.
Okay, so
We
it's
hadn't
not
talked
like
about
you said,
anything like that.
"Hey Tim, by the way, before we start dating, I saw a guy. I was sitting on a rock
Yeah,
at
no.
Almar Park."
No.
So you didn't even
No.
discuss that stuff. Okay.
We started discussing it after I saw the man.
Okay.
We were sleeping one night, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and the same man, red flannel shirt, green suspenders, was standing at the end of the bed. And we were not married at the time, and he did not like that. You could just get that vibe. You need to.
It's a very conservative ghost.
Yeah, and you need to make some changes.
Dressed as Santa Claus.
And so after that, did I wake you up that night? I can't remember.
Yeah.
We started talking about what we were seeing and comparing some notes, and yeah.
Now, were you upset then when you said, "Oh my God, Tim, I just saw a guy dressed in a flannel shirt," and he goes, "Oh yeah, I saw him last week. He was walking down the hall, and he didn't tell you." Or you're not like, "What are you doing?" So it was okay. All right.
I was shocked that we were both seeing the same thing.
Okay.
So,
I have a quick question. Now, that gentleman in the flannel coat that you saw walking down the hall, did you ever later on find out through research who that might have been?
Well, we have an idea.
we've
Okay.
seen him since, and we
Okay.
think
He's
that
the only one we still see.
every once in
Okay.
a while.
I see.
You mean you still see him like?
Once in a while.
Great.
Okay.
Once in a great while.
So,
we think he's a relative.
all righty then.
So since you moved out,
Yes.
Yes.
so it followed you
Well,
to wherever your new residence is.
As a kid, I would see him once in a while at my grandma's house. He would sit. It was my
When he was
grandpa.
alive, or-
My
I think it was
grandpa.
your
yeah, that too.
And he died when I was 9, and he smoked like a chimney. And Grandma always griped at him about smoking in the house. So she bought one of those air purifier things,
Smokeless ashtrays.
and he sat and would blow smoke into that air purifier thing at the kitchen table. And after he died, you could just kind of turn your head, and it was, like he would be sitting there for a second, and you'd look back, and you'd be like, he wouldn't be there. But it was like a residual thing, I guess.
Yeah.
At the time you didn't know that's what they'd call it, but
Right.
now that's what they would call it.
Since then, since we've moved, I've seen him in the yard a couple different times. I've not seen him in the house, but he comes around when like certain things are going on in the family, like if there's been a death or something's going
Really?
on that's kind of difficult.
Almost like to say, it's okay.
It's okay, chill out. You're fine.
I have dreams
He's not
about him
scary.
from time to time.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of I saw him at the end of the bed, and I kind of think I knew at that point who he was. He didn't like us.
It's more of a
Doing what we were
calming
doing,
thing when
yeah.
you see this guy.
Except when you saw him at the end of the bed and he was mad.
He was
that you
like,
guys were,
No,
Okay.
let's
Yeah,
fix
he wouldn't.
this.
And
So
if
then we
it-
got married the next year on his
If
birthday.
it
so
is
that
my
raised
grandpa.
him.
If it is my grandpa, he wouldn't have liked it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
but anyway,
Okay. So you guys start talking about it. Then,
Yeah.
Then what?
more stuff starts happening.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more happens.
One night in the middle of the night, we had this old clock radio by the bed, and it starts playing. It was like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and so it was on my side. So I get up and I immediately unplug it. He yells, "Unplug that clock!" And I show him the plug and the clock, and I say, "It's unplugged." And he said, "Well, take the battery out of it." I turn it over. There's no battery. So the radio is still playing. He takes it to the back door. He throws it out the back door, and it does not stop playing until it hits the ground. So it never came back in the house. You used it in the barn
I used
after
it in the
that
barn.
for the animals. You always use it
I
for
think
the
I would have
animals.
just put it right out there for S&R Refuse to pick it up.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, is one of our sponsors.
Yes.
And if you call Todd Redmond, he'll probably come pick up the haunted radio wearing his medal to show his superpowers.
He has a special division just for picking up haunted radio.
There is. There's a museum that he is dedicated to paranormal garbage. You can come and visit for a small fee.
That's not really the first thing that happened in the house. Well, it kind of is.
It's one of the earlier things that happened.
When we first bought it, there was a walk-in attic. You walk in, and it was unfinished. But there was old storm windows and mason jars, and so I go up there to start cleaning it up. Well, the weird thing about this attic, it always was weird to me. I've been in hundreds of houses because I do construction, and I've never seen, there was a box in the corner. It was about 4 by 3. It was lined in lead. I don't know. Never seen it before. Never seen that anywhere since.
What was in it?
Nothing. Just
It was
old
empty.
jars and nothing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
How big was it?
About
It's
3
big.
by 4. And it was probably...
Was it part of the attic?
It was like built into the attic. It was probably 30 inches tall or something like that.
Jerry, isn't lead supposed to repel spirits and things like that? Isn't lead one of those things that, I mean, according to folklore.
But it was built
obviously.
heavy too. It was like tongue and groove 2-bys, with this lead lining in it, and it was nailed all around the top of it, like every inch or whatever. They had those little nails. It was really strange. Like I said, I've been in hundreds of houses, and I've never seen, because I've done construction for 30 years.
12, yeah.
And
Okay.
So tell us about
So a
some
lead
other
line
things.
box. Okay. All right.
Let's
So-
do
Yeah,
some
come
research
back to
on
the
that.
box.
in this attic, when I'm cleaning, there's this picture. It's one of those old pictures taken in the early 1900s. It's got the real ornate frame.
It's big, though.
It's-
It's huge.
So I had nothing, She officially didn't live there yet. So
We'll have to ask Grandpa.
Yeah.
So he
So
can give us the real.
I had no furniture or anything. So we take this picture out. First thing we do is open it up, look for cash,
Sure.
But then we clean it up and we hang it on the wall because
We didn't have any decorations, so
everybody's like, "What are you hanging
it was
a
a
creepy
conversation
picture up
piece.
for?"
Yeah.
I don't know. We just hung it up. But everybody always fixated on that picture. It seemed like when they'd come in, they'd be like, "That's weird." They'd never say, "Is that your relative?" They would just be like, "What the hell you got that picture for?"
like, what if it really was your
Right.
relative?
Right.
So you think that the figure in your house is your grandfather. The other things that you're about to tell us about experience, do you think those are totally separate from
Yes.
him? So you have
Absolutely.
dueling energies, paranormal activity. So tell us about some of the other ones.
So we were there 5 years. To go on about the picture, we were there 5 years.
The picture was of a woman in a
and a
Victorian.
man. It was a man
Oh, did you
and a
find that
woman.
one first?
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
So I decided to redo the room right below that. And I rewired the attic and I did different things over the years. But we decided to redo the room right below it. And there's a stovepipe that goes up through this attic. So I have to go up to take the stovepipe down to redo the ceiling. When I go to remove the stovepipe, there's another picture in the same exact place.
And it wasn't there.
And it wasn't there. I mean, I'd never seen it before. I don't know where it come from, It was just there. It was all coated in dust.
Wow.
And I would have had to have moved it to get to the junction boxes for the wiring and all that stuff.
So there's no way you could have missed this.
Right.
No.
Not in 5 years in your own house, right?
In this 5-year span, we start seeing this woman.
Yeah.
And we named her Bess. I don't know why.
She just walked around.
She
the
just
house,
walked around.
warmed herself by the stove.
The stove, yeah, that
You know,
he'd already installed.
You would see her, you would turn and just like out of the corner of your eye, you'd see her standing there with her hands behind her back at the stove.
And she had this long flowing dress on. She had her hair in a bun, very
Once
early.
again, was this in color? Like you
Yeah.
could see, or versus
You
a
could
grayish?
tell she was wearing a black dress and, she had yellow or, kind of sandy brown hair.
And so she's the lady that was in the picture.
And
So we
that's what
find
it
the
looked
picture,
like.
and she's the
so
lady.
then, so okay, okay.
So we get this picture out, of course, because we're nerds, we hung it beside the other one.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
But it looks like this is the daughter to the original picture. I mean, they looked.
The features are very similar.
Okay.
And it's
Were the frames similar?
Yes.
yeah, they were not exactly the same, but real
Very
similar.
They look like they came from the same time
Same
period.
time
Yes,
period,
absolutely.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're still in that house. We left them, unless the other lady took them out.
Yeah. Well,
Did you ever go back through the county records and try to see who would have owned that and who this person could have been?
I tried. I went back. I got back. I want to say to early 1900s, and that's kind of where I lost track of it. But some other things came up at that time. We had a baby and some things that I needed to focus on. Otherwise, I didn't have. And then we sold it shortly after that. So, but yeah, I tracked it a little while. I was able to track that the people that owned it before us rented it in the 40s and 50s, and then they bought it. And then we bought it from them. And then the same family before that owned it. And I'll be honest, I don't remember their names. But they owned it for many, many years before that. And the best we could figure that it was built right around Civil War-ish time.
Yeah,
From the style of construction.
at least part of it.
Yeah, part of it. It was two houses that were put together.
So when you looked at the residential property disclosure form, did it say?
It says pre-1920s.
Yeah.
Does it say it comes with apparitions?
No.
Obviously, your grandfather we're not going to count.
No.
He follows you there.
So you start seeing the lady.
Yeah.
You find the picture
Yeah.
of the lady. You put two and two together.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other things? I mean, did the lady interact with you guys, or did you just see her?
When every time you went in the bathroom and you took a shower,
You didn't take one alone.
you felt like somebody was in there with you, and every now and then you'd even feel like
Yeah, they would
rub.
pet your back or whatever.
Yeah,
It was
and
awful.
It was like,
Oh,
you're like,
man.
is
This
there
house
a
is
fly?
for sale right now.
You'd be like, is
Because
there
for those hard to reach places.
Yeah, it was weird. It was uncomfortable. Yeah, every time the bathroom was creepy.
I gotta be honest with you, so far I haven't seen a problem with this house yet.
Holy smokes. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you put on the residential disclosure form. Right?
Yeah.
That'll entice some buyers. By the way, just for legal reference, there's no requirement in the state of Ohio that you list that your house could be haunted on the residential property disclosure.
Well, and before I
Thank
we
God.
sold it, I researched that and made sure of that because
Yeah, there's no requirement to
just
do.
in case.
There's a Supreme Court case out there in some state about whether or not you have to disclose whether someone had died or been murdered in the house. So that's
So let's get back to your showering. So let's go, because I know Jerry is very interested.
So this bathroom we had a full basement, but this bathroom was built over this old crawl space. So it was all yucky and filled in with dirt and stuff. But I swear, every time you would go in the basement, the laundry was in the basement, you would feel somebody watching you from underneath that bathroom crawl space. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
It was creepy.
like someone was in the crawl space.
Yes, something was going on.
So there
that
was dirt
uncomfortable.
in the crawl
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, kind of like you've been in
Like
the basement.
somebody was buried in the crawl space.
Well, I'm not sure everybody was
just-
going there, but maybe.
I'm just throwing it out
I know
there.
there was dead cats under there
Yeah.
when we bought it.
It was creepy to go down that basement and do laundry, but
So father, this entity Bess, who you identified.
yeah.
Did you get the impression that there, and I think we're getting there, is that there was more players
Oh,
than
absolutely.
just these two?
Yeah. Yeah. Bess was the most predominant one that we would see. And she was all over the house, mostly in that dining room right outside the
Yeah.
bathroom.
And
And she would be all over though. But
then there was a lady that was more dressed in white,
yeah.
but you didn't really see her as often.
No.
I don't know if it's the same. You never seen a face. You seen
Were
just glimpses.
The clothes that you're describing, these are 1800s, early 1900s?
Yeah. Late 18, early 19. The
Okay.
long flowing dress.
Victorian style.
Yes. And she had her hair very neatly done back into a bun. I mean, you could see that there was a bun on the back of her head.
So my father grew up on Beech Grove Road.
Oh.
in the house. It's been for sale umpteen times. It's got the barn. It's 2-story, really short window in the upstairs. You're like, I'll never get out of that window if there's a fire. He grew up in that house, and when he was the 7th son of the 7th son, by the way. And when he was 12 years old, he walked out to the barn and he saw all these people dressed as you're describing in the barn, and they were just going about their daily lives. And he's sitting there watching them, and as if they didn't see him, they were just going about their daily lives.
Is that right on the corner?
Yeah.
Okay, so right down the road.
Right. So we're talking real close. And so he was never thoroughly convinced that what he saw was ghost. He was somehow believed that what he was seeing was ripples in time. That he was somehow seen through a dimensional plane, because these people didn't see him, they didn't acknowledge him, and they were dressed like they were 1800s or whatever. Now, that was a theory he had. I say it's right, but it is taking place within, my gosh,
Feet.
feet of the house.
I walked to the barn across the road from that house every day to feed my goats.
Okay, so we're talking, yeah. So it's funny. So my dad grew up in that house.
So it's almost like, if that's, you're going to subscribe to his theory, which I don't know how much research he put to his theory.
Well, my father was not a real cerebral man, so I'm not so sure he did.
But it's almost like there's something like the ripple going through the neighborhood, and you guys are catching glimpses of maybe the lady warming her hands at the stove, and she just happens to be in the shower at the same time. But there wouldn't have been a shower back then.
No.
But maybe she's doing something in that whatever space that was while you guys just happen to be in the shower.
Yeah.
Or if that's even the same entity in the shower that you're seeing. So,
Well, over the years, we saw different things. And one time we were in the kitchen, and we were both in the kitchen together.
I was at the doorway, and she was facing me.
Yeah. And I was like, we were right there in the same space, looking towards the counter, but we were talking, and I looked towards the counter and I said, "Do you see that?" And he said, "Yeah, what do you see?" And I said, "I see an orange ball of light over the counter." And he said, "I see it too."
About that big.
Now, I've never been a believer in orbs. I think pictures and things, that's a lot of dust and things. This was a glowing ball of orange light hanging over our counter, and we both saw it. And it was the oddest thing I think that's the oddest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well,
and it hung there for a good minute.
That's you're seeing
It's
like
strange.
a guy at the end of the bed.
But that's almost kind of explainable, It's like, oh, okay, that's, Bess or whoever.
The orb story, though, we were telling our neighbors directly across the road
About what was going
the
on.
orange light. And she says, well, the funny thing is, when the house sat empty, we would drive past there, and she would tell her husband, "I like that orange light in the kitchen."
Yeah.
Oh,
she collected lights, and she thought it was a light that
So it was a
someone
light
had
the
left
She
on.
collects like beer signs and
Yeah.
Okay.
So
She's like, I don't know what kind of light that is, but I like that color of orange.
Yeah.
Tell her she could have it.
I mean, she's got an orange
too.
car now,
Yeah.
so she likes the color orange.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's just there was some
And
weird
so
stuff.
you just sat there and watched it,
Yeah.
and then
And it just disappeared.
It was just like for
it didn't move. It just
Probably-
kind of sat there.
Yeah.
10 seconds.
Oh, I bet it was longer than that.
Yeah, I mean,
well, long enough for you two to have a conversation
Yes,
about it.
exactly. Yeah.
Hold
so-
on. Okay.
Sounds to me like there's a certain frequency in that area that it seems like it's conducive to this paranormal activity. It's allowing you to be able to see things as well as experience things that just in that particular area. And that's
It's weird.
fascinating.
Well, and then we're just talking about what we know.
Just
We
what
don't
you,
even know
just
about
what you've
what
witnessed
other
so
people
far.
and other
It's a great place to
locations.
investigate, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Well, when I get to the wind story with my daughter, you may not think it's a great thing to investigate.
Well,
so,
we have some stories that
So-
it got scarier.
Yes.
there was a lot of things before Ivy.
Yeah, we have a daughter. Her name is Ivy.
When we remodeled the upstairs, the whole time I was up there, I was drywalling and insulating and everything. Always felt like somebody was watching you. But Then shortly after that, it kind of
got worse.
like once we moved upstairs,
We got married. We moved upstairs
It
and
stepped up another notch.
yeah, his
So up until this point, everything seems pretty benign.
yeah, you just
Harmless.
kind of
You
saw
get used to
things.
it.
Yeah,
Okay,
no big
it's
deal.
Beth. She's warming her hands. It's Grandpa. It's cool, man. We're married now. Quit peeking in the bed. I'm a
Yeah,
little worried
shower.
that some night, be
It's
a
cool.
little romantic. Grandpa, come on, man.
So it gets after we get married and we move upstairs, it gets worse a
Yeah.
little bit. We at that point we had like one. It always was worse at Halloween time too. One time I'm a big decorator when it comes to like holidays, so I had some glass pumpkins on a shelf in the dining room, and they were about the size of a baseball maybe, and we're sitting in the living room, the two of us and our dogs. We had 2 dogs at that time, and all of a sudden we hear this crash in the dining room. And I had 3 glass pumpkins sitting there, and one of them had flown across the dining room and hit the floor and shattered into a million pieces. So we're like, how did this happen? The dogs weren't, scratching and shaking the wall or anything like that. We were watching TV, so we weren't moving around.
We wiggled the shelf.
We went out to wiggle the shelf to see if we could get the other ones to kind of have that kind of force to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't.
Junior high science.
Yeah.
A body at rest stays at rest unless acted upon by an external force either equal or greater than the
That may
mass.
be the
Yeah.
only
That's
thing
impressive. Yes, I
science
remember
related.
Thank you, Miss Hart.
Okay. Yes.
So
That's
that
right.
kind of stuff happened. One night, I had have 2 nephews, and at that time they were about 10 and 15, 14, 15. And he has a little brother at that time, was about 13. Well, the boys were at our house quite a bit. And one night, my mom was out there, and we had the boys, and you had went to take your little brother
I
home.
went to take my brother
Joey.
home,
And my mom and I were in the living room. You had
and
Joey and
with
Chase,
me.
yeah.
Chase went with
My
me.
nephew. And my mom and I were in the living room with my dogs, and all of a sudden the back door starts violently shaking. It was like someone was on the outside hanging onto the knob and just like shaking it back and forth, banging it, in the door jamb. And we thought these guys were playing with us.
So she calls me and she says, "You guys
Knock
stop it.
off.
Where are you?"
Because we know, we've all seen stuff at this point. We all know something's going on. And he's like, I'm in town at my mom's house dropping Joey
I'm
off.
on North Sandusky Street.
So
I don't know
And-
what you're talking about.
no one was out there. I went out. I checked to see who was out there, what was going on. Nothing. So, we're freaked out at this point. And so then he comes back, he checks out everything, and you can shake the door like that. Like I could take my hand and shake the door, but there was nothing out there. It
To
was shaking
shake it.
from the outside too. Nothing out there to
And
shake it.
And there's an enclosed porch
Yeah.
on the other side, so it's not like it was wind. Right.
Yeah. And I
Gotcha.
think it was
Although
windy
it
that
may,
night.
knowing the neighborhood, it
Yeah.
may have been wind.
That porch, one time, several times, I would step out onto that, off the porch onto the steps. And I swear I was pushed more than once. Our engagement party, I flew out the steps and landed out on the grass. And it was amazing because you would clear the sidewalk, you'd clear the rest of the steps and land on the grass. I have never done that, knock on wood.
So you had what
Again.
we call an Elena Ross experience,
Yeah, where
where
the
the entity actually touched you.
Oh, yeah.
Physically touched
Yeah.
you.
outside of being in the shower together.
Right.
That's a poltergeist experience.
Well, and then
That
after
can get
we had
dangerous.
our daughter, she was a tiny baby, and my mom was there. She was picking her up for the day to keep her all day. And he took her, Ivy, the baby, and he said, Pauline, I'll carry her out for you. And at that point, my mom was pushed out the.
And
It was
I
like she
seen
flew.
her because I was right behind her, and she cleared the steps. I mean, it was like something
Did you
forced
feel a
her.
force like in
Yes.
your back, like
Like
it
something's-
literally moved your
Yes.
body.
And
moving
like
you.
she had so much momentum when she landed, she tried not to fall, and she like stumbled and stumbled and stumbled before
Yeah.
she finally, fell down.
And then she turned around and immediately accused you of shoving.
Well, she was like, I don't know what happened. I must have tripped or something,
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I said, I'll carry Ivy out. She was just a baby. And I don't know why, but
Because that was she normally when she came to get her, she would just get her in her little car seat basket thing and
Because that could have
Take
been
her to the car.
big trouble if she had
could have been, yeah.
So when that started happening, obviously you have to start reassessing the situation
Yeah.
from
is it
okay,
safe?
this is harmless to this is not safe.
Right.
And I've been there, and you'll hear my
Yeah.
my whole analysis on that.
Yeah.
But so what'd you guys do then?
Well, we stayed there for a while. We had some other experiences before we had Ivy,
The
and
strangest one's when we were having
yeah.
it.
But we had during the middle of the night one time a similar door experience. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We got up in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and the door downstairs, someone was knocking
Oh,
on it.
yeah.
Well, our bedroom looked out over the driveway. There wasn't anybody out. He went flying down the stairs.
I thought somebody needed help.
Nobody was
So, I
there.
mean, it was.
Right.
So, but we had other stuff happen like that.
I put French doors in our bedroom upstairs there, glass French doors, and we had curtains over them if you wanted
So
to.
Grandpa couldn't watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that room was kind of had a weird angle. It's kind of a weird feeling room.
Yeah,
anyway.
and then there was a spare room off to the other side.
And one night we're both in bed and the doors just
We're sleeping,
flew open.
and
The
someone
curtains-
yelled "Sharma" really loud.
to push it open, you had to slide the curtains, and they were heavy drape type curtains.
Yeah.
that were clear to the floor, and
So the amount of force that would have been required
it
to
was more
push
than
that-
just a breeze.
You could feel the wind off of it when they opened.
and
They
the
opened
dogs
so
were in the
fast.
room with us, so it wasn't them.
And somebody yelled, "You're
Someone yelled my name. A man yelled my name.
And I never slept really sound the whole time because somebody would get in your face and go shh or wake up.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to pause this spine-tingling and chilling interview with this week's guests, Tim and Charma. But tune in next week for the conclusion of this interview, as well as another tale from the judge about another paranormal experience that he has encountered and wishes to share with you, our audience. So make sure you tune in next week for this upcoming episode of the From the Shadows podcast. I am the producer, Jason Lewis. And now, let me turn you back over to your host, Shane Grove, with another word from this week's sponsor.
We here at From the Shadows podcast would like to welcome a new sponsor, NOS Hops, the first choice for all your microbrewing needs. Their facility prides itself in growing the finest hops in Ohio.
Hey, man, where's the tequila?
Jerry, there isn't any hops in tequila.
There isn't?
Okay, so for all your home brewing needs, contact Glenn and Tim at NOS Hops. And Jason, keep Jerry out of the tequila.
For real. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Please visit us on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/From the Shadows Podcast, and on our Instagram page at instagram.com/From the Shadows Podcast, and tweet us on our Twitter feed at twitter.com/podcast_from. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you all. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.